Yeah, so basically it's 4 million votes. That's over a 30% increase to what we saw in 2015 in terms of registered voters. And looking at the report that we released, what we set out to do basically was to see who the key contenders would be, how each of the regions can actually perform, and what are the possible scenarios through which we can have, through which one of the major contenders can emerge victorious, after the elections. And we looked at various scenarios, we looked at historical trends. Most importantly, we looked at the last two elections, 2011 and 2015. How, unfortunately for us, we had the current president compete in the last two elections, so that gives us a bit of insight into how he could likely perform in the upcoming election.
Now, it's interesting to know that you focus in your report on the two main parties, the ruling APC and the opposition of People's Democratic Party. And there is no mention of, the new kids on the block that we call them. I know that there's been a lot of talk about them forming a coalition, and that with the way things are now, the number of, the third parties, as it were, they could split the vote. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah,
so we focus majorly on the two major political parties. We did give a bit of mention to the other fringe players. However, if you look at elections in Nigeria today, as heterogeneous as Nigeria is, to be able to win an election, you have to have very certain key elements in place, one of which is a national appeal. Right? Now, most of these other players do not have the national appeal. I mean, to be declared winner in the election, you have to win at least 25% of the votes in 2/3 of the states. That in itself ensures national appeal. We've not seen that really play out for these other fringe players like Obieze Kwesili, Filajiro Toye. But if you look at APC and the PDP, these two parties have history in terms of political structure, in terms of platform, in terms of geographical reach, in terms of the finances and resources to be able to compete, in an election in Nigeria. But on the positive side, I mean, we think that this campaign for the fringe players can serve as a springboard, for upcoming elections if they continue to push with the kind of intensity that we've seen in 2019.
Let's talk about the voters themselves. We know that INEC has done a great deal in terms of voter education, and I know that a lot of civil society groups have also done a lot in terms of voter education. But let me take you back to 2015, where it appeared that we had this sudden reawakening of the Nigerian voter, who became a lot more aware of the importance of his or her vote, and we saw that explosion on social media, especially Twitter. Do you think that we're going to see maybe a bigger play of that this time around?
Yes, it's interesting to see how our democracy has evolved over the years. I mean, coming from 2007, 2011, and then 2015. 2015, we saw increased awareness and improved participation in the entire political process. And I think that is very good for the maturity of our democracy. We may not be there yet, but then again, with the improvement in awareness, the improvement in participation we see on mainstream media, social media, like you say, that is very, very good for our participation. Everyone wants to be involved. The president recently signed a Not Too Young to Run bill. That also gives other impetus for the younger ones to be able to get involved in the political process.
Now, there have also been issues thrown up about what to expect in terms of actual voting and the role of technology. I mean, the voter cards, the voting machines. And I know that some of the opposition parties have been making a lot of noise in terms of how what to expect on that day and the problems that they foresee happening and the expectations of what INEC, the regulator, would do in such instances. What are your thoughts in terms of how this could play out, scenarios that could potentially play out if we do have those issues emerging and calls for, I don't know, maybe like recounting or revoting or something? Do you see that being a major headwind for this election?
I think INEC has put structures in place to be able to ensure that we have a free and fair election. I mean, this is not just, you don't want to take 2 steps backward after taking 1 step forward in 2015, where we had to use technology to be able to, assess voter counts during the elections, right? So I'm sure they've put structures in place to be able to ensure that there are no issues regarding that. However, in terms of votes, malpractices, like you said, or any other thing that could lead to a recount in the election, I do not foresee that happening because the world is watching, actually. And we are looking, most importantly, towards the maturity of our democracy, which is very, very key to enhance the confidence of the global community for Nigeria, to enhance the confidence of foreign investors, because most of them are on the sidelines at the moment, wanting to come into Nigeria, but then they're a bit cautious to see how these elections play out, because that has a whole lot of role to play in terms of their sentiments towards us.
So speaking about maturity and how far our democracy has come, there was a time in this country when people were, I think even 2015 was also an example where people were nervous about how the loser of an election would take the outcome and take the results. Would you say that, I mean, when we did see then president, doing the right thing, as it were, do you think that this time, should we expect that level of maturity this time or decorum, as it were, if people do feel if they are aggrieved parties, and that these aggrieved parties would decide to seek, go to the law courts to, seek redress?
So I think, speaking about that, I expect at the end of the election, whoever loses should actually, concede defeat. Now, we saw in 2011 when President Buhari lost the election, so then there was violence, right? Over 800 people were killed. Same in 2015. Jonathan lost the election. He conceded defeat. However, there was still violence, right? So coming into 2019, there may be pockets of, grievances here and there, but I expect, that's why I was talking about the maturity of our democracy. I expect at the end of the day, the institutions, the structures, political structures that we have in place should be able to put those in checks. Like I said previously, it's not just about Nigeria as an isolated nation, but then again, the impact of how the election goes, and how it's being viewed by the entire global community. Okay,
Jerry, one last question. And looking at through your report, you did say that you expecting the PDP, or you said the PDP will likely win the South-South. Tell us briefly about that.
Yeah, so I mean, if you looking at historical terms, and the PDP has always nicked the South-South. That is in the last two elections, in 2011 and in 2015. The PDP has had, convincing victory in the South-South, at least 92%.
And you don't think anything has changed since
so,
then?
I mean, the recent development right now with the Chief Justice of the Federation right now, I mean, on the calls, so that in itself has negative sentiments, for the South-South concerning the current administration. So it's possible that the PDP can nick it over there.
Okay, Jerry, keep our fingers crossed. Thank you for talking to us today. It's been a pleasure.